welcome to the Do Not Disturb Football Podcast. I am your host, Drew Pelter, in the Steelers shirt, that is Nimmer, and in the black shirt, that is Darian. Make sure you guys are all following us on all of our social media platforms. We are on Instagram, X, TikTok, and here on YouTube. Like, share, subscribe. As always, if this is your first time to the podcast, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. We have two packed shows for you, one today and one tomorrow. Let's get into the injury report really quick. We have some injuries throughout the week. I'm going to pick up where we left off. The probably biggest injury that happened was the Eagles cornerback James Bradbury. He's now out for 6 to 8 weeks with a leg injury. That'll be interesting to see how that affects that secondary, bringing in Mitchell and probably Cooper DeJean picking up some reps there. They also had an injury in the linebacking core. Devin White sustained a ankle injury today, and he's now questionable for Friday's game against Green Bay. And their safety, Sidney Brown, suffered a knee injury and now is on injured reserve. He's expected to return week 6. So quite a few injuries for the Eagles. Mark Andrews for the Ravens, he is saying he's feeling great and he's going to be ready for week 1. Dolphins wide receiver core, they had some injuries that were lingering. Tyreek Hill did just speak today. He said, "Don't worry, fantasy owners. I'm feeling great. I'm going to be A-okay for week 1." So he's good to go. Jalen Waddle has been wearing a non-contact jersey at practice. I think he's fine. With the Tyreek injury, his injury, even a backup behind him, Rivers Craycraft, I believe his name is, and Odell Beckham Jr. being injured. I think they were trying to be really careful with this wide receiver core and not, having something happen where another guy gets injured or something like that. Packers wide receiver Romeo Doubs injured his hand at practice today. He's now questionable for Friday's game against Philadelphia. And then San Francisco wide receiver Ricky Pearsall, probably another really big story that happened this weekend. He was shot in the chest, and he's now dealing with that injury. He's going to be out for some weeks. I don't think there's a timetable for him. We wish everyone a speedy recovery, especially Pearsall. That sounds like just a terrible story. But let me turn it back over to the boys here. Before I go to you guys, I want to thank some of the viewers. We've been asking you guys for some rosters. We got a really good response out of that. We're going to be grading some rosters today. If you're listening out there, Taji, Terry, David, we are all getting your rosters in today. So make sure you stick around for those. But boys, how are we doing? Nimmer, it was a long weekend for both of us, for all of us. How was your weekend?
It was good. My weekend was good. It was a nice, relaxing weekend. We didn't really do too much. Yesterday we spent our Labor Day doing labor around the house, painting a room, our guest room, which is funny because we just had guests over last month. We had a packed house last month, and now we're deciding to paint the room. So it's just had a pretty good weekend, but I'm super excited for this week. It's football, baby. Like, you can just smell it in the air. Just football in the air. Just every conversation, next to the water cooler, as you would say, with your coworkers, just texting about football. Every call. Oh, how's your fantasy team looking? Start texting people and stuff like that. So it's a beautiful time of the year.
Yes, I am so excited for this game on Thursday and Friday. I think both of those games are going to be really interesting. Darian, how are you doing?
Doing good. Loving the 3-day weekend that we had. Sam and I, we went up to her parents' place up north over in Sherman. Loved it up there. Saw the house that her dad's building. It's gorgeous. It's going to be super dope when he finishes it. And we actually did a fantasy draft with the family. It was impromptu. There was talks about it last year by her sister Jessica, and we finally pulled the trigger on it since we were all in the house. And we did a little 8-man league, and the rule was for me I had to have a handicap since I had this podcast with you guys. So her dad was like, nah, he's got to have a handicap. So every other pick Sam picked for me. So she was just scrolling through the list of random people,
Damn.
clicking draft. And I got to say, the worst pick that she had for me was Kirk Cousins. And in like the 5th round when Anthony Richardson was still there. Oh, I was hurt. But
yeah, you were probably blowing up. I could only imagine. You're just like, inside. You're like, don't forget, I love this girl. Don't forget, I love this girl.
No, I let it be known. I was like, that was a shit pick, Sam. But we're on to the next one. But overall, it was a great weekend. How about you, Drew?
Oh man, so pretty interesting. I went and got some blood work done over the weekend. Went to see the doctor. I told the doctor, I was like, I would like to know if I am completely allergic to shellfish, because that has been a question I've had. I've drank Clamato, and that has clam in it. So I would like to know, like, am I still fighting this injury? Is this still a thing? And he said, you know, what we can do is we can take your blood and we can test you for fish, shellfish, a bunch of different kind of seafood, and we'll see what you're allergic to. I got the test results today, and I have no allergy to seafood.
Ooh. So you lived this whole life?
Oh my God.
So I think I outgrew that allergy. I definitely did have an allergy when I was a kid. So I guess I'm going to be trying fish and chips and salmon, and
hey, have like an EpiPen just in case the doctor's wrong or something. That's wild.
That's what I'm wondering. I'm like, if I get sick now, like say I go have lobster and then I'm in the hospital the next day, I think that's a lawsuit. I don't know. We'll see.
Right? That's so funny. Before we move on, I did want to shout out my Auntie Rella, because this is her first year. Darian reminded me I had a family draft this weekend too, and so my Auntie Rella is doing fantasy for the first time. So shout out to her. My mom, this is year 2 for her. Last year was year 1. Nice. We convinced her. And I remember we were drafting with her. She's so funny, my mom. She was like, first round, she was like, should I just get George Kittle? Let me get George Kittle is really, really good, because she loves George Kittle. I'm just going to grab George. Me and my brother were like, no, get CMC. Just get CMC. She had like the 3rd pick or something like that. Maybe the 2nd. Mm-hmm. And we're like, just get CMC. You can get George Kittle. She's like, all right, well, maybe Patrick Mahomes. Maybe Patrick Mahomes 2nd round. And I was like, no. It was just so funny. It was, yeah. So, but she's starting to like it. She's starting to get the itch too, which is fun. Mm-hmm. But yeah, shout out to Auntie Rella for, this is the first year we actually started doing fantasy. Before we did like Pigs Pick'em, like we're doing with a podcast. Mm-hmm. But now we're transitioning, we're getting more advanced with fantasy. So
it's fun. It's fun to see people. I think people navigate towards it naturally because they see the amount of fun that we're having with it. Mm-hmm. So they want to get into it. It's like my wife, she's really itching to get into a fantasy league.
Do you guys remember when fantasy first came out and they started having commercials? And those were like the best football commercials ever. Remember they like, I forgot what it was, where Chris they like, that's exactly like in like a wall, and he's like, pick me for fantasy. It's so funny.
It was called Fantasy Files. Fantasy Files. That's what it was on YouTube.
Yeah, bring those back. That would be. I mean, we don't really need more popularity because fantasy's already big, but like just for the entertainment, because some of these commercials are just straight ass. So like just having some or even like the Sports Center ones where they're in the cubicles and like the mascot like trucks one of the announcers. I don't know.
There was a hot minute there when I was watching those as a kid. I thought those commercials were real, and I was like, man, these guys are out of this world.
Could you imagine just in the office you just see a mascot just come and just tackle somebody?
I remember I'm trying to think who it was. I think it was whoever the kicker was for the Eagles. He was like kicking the ball and he hit the Liberty Bell from like a long distance away, like 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
I was like, this dude is amazing.
Oh man, that is so funny.
But speaking of that Pick'em League, we
Oops.
still have some opening for people. I mean, we have as many people as we want. We have 7 people right now. We'd love to have you join. The link to our Pick'em League is in the bio of our Instagram page. You can just click on there. It's a free entry, and if you win, if you guess the correct amount of wins from each matchup, at the end of the season, you're going to win $100. So there's really nothing to lose, only something for you to gain. Join our Pick'em League. It is in the Instagram bio. Some big signings today, some of the bigger news that happened around the league. This happened last week. Brandon Ayuk, he signed a 4-year, $120 million deal to stay with the Niners. And then some breaking news a little bit before this podcast, a couple hours before the podcast started. 49ers left tackle signed a 3-year, $82.66 million extension. I think this does bring up the question, how much is Purdy going to get next year? Because he's going to be wanting quite a bit. Let me talk to you guys about that first. What is your reaction to some of these 49ers signings? Darian, why don't you go first?
So first and foremost, yeah, I think it was a huge signing to get Trent Williams back on the team, have him be happy. I know the Commanders, when they were the Redskins, failed to do so in many aspects. And I mean, he's the top tackle in the league and has been since he's been drafted. So honestly, getting that guy back in the building is huge for him, especially protecting Brock. And then also signing Ayuk is huge. It maintains that offense. There's so many weapons, and he was a major factor in the team's success in the past couple of years, getting them into the Super Bowl, NFC championships. So with that, those 2 signings are huge. Now, like you mentioned, you kind of left with a question mark on Brock Purdy. How much are you going to pay him? Or if you go for someone new. I mean, there's all these hypotheticals, these speculations, but I think they probably hammer out a deal. He's not going to be the highest paid. I don't think he's going to come close to it, but he's going to get paid a respectable amount. This guy's real humble. I've seen the clips of him during bye weeks. He goes back home to Iowa where he's on the farm. So dude's from humble origins. So I don't think he, asked for too much change, but it definitely is awesome that they signed those 2 big names in Trent Williams and Ayuk.
Nimmer, what are your thoughts on these signings?
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. I think that they needed the core the core pieces, and I think Ayuk and especially Trent Williams was a huge signing, and so I for the Brock Purdy situation, I think that. I mean, he's gonna get paid more than he is now. He's getting paid less than $1 million a year. So, I don't think that he's even gonna crack the top 5 best top paid quarterbacks. But they'll probably do some sort of salary cap gymnastics and sign him an appropriate amount. But I don't think that it's going to be as much as we're anticipating. Plus, I feel like Darian said, I feel like he's a humble guy. All he wants to do is just play ball and win. And in order to win, as Tom Brady has done in the past, he kind of set the precedent for it that you don't have to get paid as much, on the field, and let everybody else get paid. And then as a quarterback, you get all the glory. So I'm sure he's gonna go through that route, especially the team around him. I mean, they're bound for a Super Bowl one of these years. So I think that he will get paid. He's just not going to get paid, the top amount within the top 5.
Yeah, I think you guys are probably right. He's not going to be, the highest paid quarterback, but there's a case for it. I mean, I would say if I'm Brock Purdy's agent, look at Dak's numbers, look at Tua's numbers. Brock has already done more than them. So look at Daniel Jones' numbers. Like, Brock has done more than all those guys.
Mm-hmm.
So he should be in the ballpark of something pretty big in the NFL. I kind of wonder what happens. Say you go through this year, say you don't have a year as you did last year. You don't make it to the Super Bowl, and you have all these guys that just signed these new contracts, and Brock Purdy's coming up. What happens? Do you blow the team up? Do you send some people away? That is kind of my question with the whole thing.
Yeah, but then didn't they just re-sign CMC and Debo last offseason, and then this season they re-signed Ayuk and Williams, obviously. So then, like, I feel like next,
Yeah,
and that's just on the offensive side. I don't even know. I don't know the contract details with Warner, and everybody else on the defense.
I
Junior
believe
Troy
Bosa.
Polamalu, Bosa. Like, I don't even know.
I believe Bosa is the highest paid on the team right now. I
Mhm.
could be wrong, but
Really?
I think he is. Yeah.
See,
That would
so
make sense.
I don't know.
So I guess we'll find out next time on how the hell do the Niners keep paying all these people.
Right.
Dead.
Other signing that happened today: the Pittsburgh Steelers are extending defensive tackle Cameron Hayward to a $45 million deal. This includes $29 million in new money. I guess I'll go to the Steeler fan first. Let's hear about Cameron Hayward's leadership and all that jazz. Nimmer, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna bore you guys with all that. It's not really surprising. I mean, he started practicing. He's not some of these drama queens out there or drama kings out there, holding out and stuff like that. Like, everybody knew he was gonna get paid. It just depended on how much it was gonna be. So this isn't like a huge surprise. I'm just glad it's done before the year. He is getting up there. He does have a podcast, so I'm sure the money there. I mean, within the contract wasn't like the top priority. I'm sure he just wanted to stay a Steeler.
Darren, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, not much to say in this signing. I think it was great for the locker room culture fit. I mean, dude's been there for years, and is still a presence on the defense, despite his age. So I think it was a great signing, keeping him on for a couple more years, and even perhaps like moving into a mentorship role once he's kind of fading out into that contract. The older that he gets, so I really love the signing. I've always been a fan of Hayward. I'm pretty sure he was a Walter Payton Man of the Year candidate and also a winner. So, dude's honestly there for the community too, for Pittsburgh and all the fan base. So he's a great, upstanding dude as well as a player. So I love the signing.
Yeah, I think all the Steelers fans around here love this signing, love having him back. So good on the Steelers.
I
Good
just
for
can't
Cameron
wait
Hayward.
that when the games go on, this Pittsburgh is gonna go so crazy. It's just gonna be so eye opening. Very, very envious of you being in
Yeah,
Pittsburgh.
there's still tickets for the Kansas City game and on Christmas or Christmas Eve. It's either on Christmas or Christmas Eve.
Christmas
I can't
Day.
remember for Christmas Day for $130. Nosebleeds, but
You
not
should do
bad.
it.
That's
Yeah,
yeah.
I should.
It's even in the nosebleeds. We went last year, in the Titans game, and that was Thursday night, and it was the Titans. I don't really remember how much they were, but you still could see a lot. So I mean, the seats still were pretty good, and just seeing Renegade the fourth quarter. Did they
Mhm.
do that during the preseason or no? On the fourth quarter, did they play
Mm,
Renegade? The beginning of the fourth.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't think we stuck around for the fourth quarter.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean
It
that
was
honestly is just something you have to experience. Even though if you're not a Steeler fan, but like just yeah, wow.
Was it Renegade by Sticks? Like
I believe
that's
so,
I
yeah.
didn't
yeah,
know
that,
it
Bro.
said that. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's
that's
so
their thing.
hyped. It's so hyped. It's insane. You just see
I love
and
that song.
the whole Coliseum is just all yellow with the terrible towels flying. I was just like it was just like wow.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very exciting. I'm excited for this football season. It's such a different experience being here in Pittsburgh for this
Yeah,
football season.
I bet. Oh,
Very excited. But let's go into our over under our predictions for the West division. So this is
Mm.
the AFC West and the NFC West. We have the Super Bowl champions, two-time Super Bowl champions here in the AFC West. Kansas City Chiefs, the Chargers with new head coach Jim Harbaugh, who's had success in the NFL, made it to a Super Bowl, and just is coming off of a national championship in college. Raiders with Antonio Pierce, who finished the year well last year, beating the Chiefs actually, and the Broncos, who have a new quarterback and pretty much a new regime going on. So let me hear it from you guys. Over under 11.5 wins for the Chiefs. Darian, why don't you start?
Yeah, so I was looking at their schedule, and supposedly they have the 10th easiest schedule this year. So, just put a bow on it, wrap it up. They're getting an over just because of that. So they're going to get over. I think they're going to be around 12 to 13 wins just with that ease of schedule. One would think after winning back-to-back Super Bowls, they would have the hardest schedule to see how good they all actually are. So to have the 10th easiest schedule this year, it's a given that they're going to hit over 12.
Yeah, Roger Goodell must be a Taylor Swift fan, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah, what? Do you know how much money that he brought the NFL? Oh my god, it's more over unders how many times Taylor Swift will be presented on the Chiefs games. That should be a better over under.
Never, what do you think? Over under?
And for all the Swifties out there, I love Taylor Swift. I just think that they kind of overdid it. Even Travis Kelce said it on his podcast that them showing Taylor Swift after every single highlight was too much. So don't hate me. But back to football. I think that the Chiefs are gonna go 1-1 with the Raiders. I think that the Raiders are always the Chiefs' Achilles heel. They'll win one, especially this upcoming game with the whole offseason Kermit the Frog incident during the offseason. The Chiefs are probably going to win game 1, and then game 2 the Raiders are going to win, and then they'll go 2-0 against the Broncos and the Chargers. The tough thing about the Chiefs, and I noticed this last year, is that they kind of coast through the season. They don't go all out throughout the whole entire season. They kind of go under the radar. Oh, the Chiefs, they might barely win, or they don't, I don't know, go 100% or whatever the case may be. And then all of a sudden playoffs hit, and then bam, it's like a light switch. They just turn on, and they just start popping off, and they just keep winning and winning and winning. But that being said, I think that it's going to go over. I have them at 13 wins. I think that this is the best receiving core that that Patrick Mahomes has had ever since Tyreek Hill left, and they are playing the AFC North, which it's kind of surprising that they're the 10th easiest because they're playing the AFC North, which is the hardest division, but they're also playing on the flip side. They're playing the NFC South, which is the easier division. So, and if you don't know the names, AFC South is the Steelers division. The NFC South is the Falcons, Saints, Panthers, and Buccaneers division. So, they kind of, yeah. So I have them at 13 wins. But the fact that they kind of coast through some of the games mid-season, it's kind of worries me about that line. But I can definitely see them hitting 12 or 13 wins.
Yeah, I definitely think they're going to hit the over. Like you said, excuse me, like you said, they kind of coast and preserve themselves, I feel like, through the season. It's like watching, for any basketball fans out there, it's like watching one of those super teams like Golden State when they had Kevin Durant, or Miami when they had LeBron. Those teams kind of struggle during the regular season, but then the playoffs get there and they all turn it on and they look unstoppable. That's kind of what the Chiefs are. I have them definitely hitting the over, probably 12 or 13, like you guys said. Next is the Chargers. I almost called them the San Diego Chargers. That's not who they are anymore. The Los Angeles Chargers, 8-5 is the line. Nimber, what do you think? Over, under?
I think they are going to be the second most overrated team that in the NFL. I think the Bills are number 1, and we said that on previous episodes, and I think the Chargers are going to be number 2. The fact that they have the same win total as the Steelers is ridiculous. I don't think that they're gonna do good at all. I have them at 6 wins. I have them going 1-1 with the Raiders and the Broncos, even though the Raiders demolished them last year. But the fact that they have a new coaching staff, I'll give them 1-1 with the Raiders and the Broncos, and then I don't think they beat the Chiefs. So I have them at 6 wins. So I'm gonna take the under.
Darren, what do you think?
So with their strength of schedule, they're ranked the second easiest. Um, so I'm a little torn here. I like the Chargers. I love Justin Herbert. I think he can make things happen and potentially win. But I gotta agree with Nim. I gotta say they're gonna be on the under. I think they are slightly overrated. Their floor is 6 wins, but their ceiling is 8. And if they eke by, it's just based on coaching, system, and late game wins, being that ceiling of 8. But I do have them on the under for the stat line.
Yeah, I think they hit the under as well. I think they're probably looking right at 7 or 8 wins. I like the Chargers. I'm a big fan of Harbaugh. He's probably, now that he's in the NFL, he's probably one of my favorite coaches in the NFL. I think whenever Harbaugh comes into a system, you know exactly, even if you just watched the first couple drives of a Harbaugh-led team and I didn't know who the coach was, I could be like, oh, this is Harbaugh's team, because they run the ball, they play tough defense, they're very scrappy, almost like an old school style of football, which is really fun to watch. I don't think it comes to fruition this year, maybe next year. So yeah, I have them at the under as well.
Don't the Chargers, didn't they draft Jerry Rice's son too?
Brendan Rice.
Yeah. I was just wondering about that.
A couple new receivers for them. They got Ladd and Rice, and Palmer's still there. He's going to be the one guy that's been there. But we have the Raiders next, Las Vegas Raiders. The line is 6.5. I think that's kind of a ridiculous line. Nimmer, why don't you go ahead and start over under 6.5 wins?
Yeah, so I don't know if that's a ridiculous line in a good or bad way. And I think it's a ridiculous line in a bad way. I think they're gonna crush this line. I think that the fact that AP is their head coach, I think they haven't had a good head coach since the first time that Gruden came, not the second time. And I think that all the players are bought into AP, and all the they have the talent there. They do have some question marks on the quarterback side, but nevertheless, I have them going 1-1 with the Chiefs and Chargers, and them beating the Broncos 2-0, putting them at 9 wins.
No shot. Darian, why don't you give us your over under for the Raiders?
I mean, in previous episodes, we've kind of said that Raiders are this dark horse, this anomaly coming into this season, and I think they beat this stat line, and so they're going to have the over. But I don't think it's by much, like Nimmer was saying. I do think they could be hovering around 7 to 8 wins, and being around that third place finish in this division. I'm not too sold. I mean, that quarterback play is maybe the iffy part. Some holes on defense, but they're going to win games. They're going to be scrappy. They're going to be bought in, like Nim said. They're bought in with AP. But in reality, I don't think they're going to pull off many wins in that regard over 6.5. So all in all, that goes to say it's an over, but only by 1, maybe 2 games.
Yeah, so I think it's been 8 wins in a row for the Raiders against the Broncos or something like that. I hate them. I can't put it any other way. I absolutely hate them so much.
Isn't there like a huge rivalry that, like, back in the day in the 70s or something, the Broncos threw snowballs at the Raiders coming out? It was I think it was the Broncos. The Raiders came out, threw snowballs, and then they went back to Oakland and they started throwing batteries at the players.
Yeah,
that was crazy.
Yeah, that was a whole thing. Yep. Yeah, there's no playing around with this rivalry. It's one of the most heated rivalries in all of the NFL. I'd put it right up there with the Bears and the Packers. Um, even though like the Broncos haven't been good in a while, there's still a lot of hatred towards that team for every Bronco fan. Um, with all that being said, I really have high hopes for the Raiders this year. I'm not going to give too much away. I do think that this team finishes second in this division. I think they're looking at probably 8 or 9 win season, um, and they're going to hit the over here. And lastly, my Denver Broncos, 5.5 wins. I'll give you guys my thoughts here in a second, but first I'll go to Darian. Why don't you go ahead?
You know, they've been growing on me. I kind of like the Broncos. I like Bo Nix. I like Sean Payton, what he's got cooking over there. All that goes to say they are going to hit the over. I think it's going to be a really cool Broncos team, and this is me just having a lot of high hopes for them. For you, Drew. Um, so I do think they hit the over. Outside of division is where they're really going to get their wins. And so I see them being around 6-7. It's not by much. I don't think they're going to have some crazy, miraculous year. I think they're just going to outplay their expectations by a sizable margin, but like 1 to 2 wins.
Nimmer, what do you think?
I'm sorry to break it. I'm very honest, as you saw yesterday at that episode. I'm a very honest person, and they are gonna hit this under. I think they're gonna be the third worst team in the NFL. I think that Bo Nix and Sean Payton are the only reason that they aren't dead last. I think that the 3 wins they're gonna get are the Chargers, the Giants, and then maybe the Commanders. I think those are the 3 teams, or the Yeah, they play somebody else, but I think they have 3 wins. I think it's going to be a rebuild year, which is honestly good for you because then you get the 3rd-round pick next year, and then that would, snowball into you guys being good again. So sorry to say, Drew, it's going to be a long season for the Broncos, but I don't think it's going to be their year.
I'm rooting for the 3rd pick. I would love Travis Hunter coming to the Denver Broncos, to be honest with you. I think I've said that in the NFC, which one is that? East. I said that the Washington is the biggest lock in these over-unders. I think the over for Denver is the biggest lock in the AFC. If we won 9 games with Russ, we're going to win more games, not more games than what we had with Russ. We're going to win more games in 5 games with Bo Nix. I truly believe that. I think we beat Seattle coming out in Seattle. I think we beat the Steelers in Denver. So that's 2-0 right there. We're halfway there. I would smash.
It's a hot take, man.
Over.
You guys are going to beat the Steelers? Oh, my
yes.
God. Okay.
Yes. I can't wait for that week.
I'm more surprised about the Seahawks.
Yeah, that's going to be a tougher place to play.
Yeah.
Tough. Wow.
That's going to be tough. Well, you're in Denver. Steelers are coming to Denver.
Oh, I see. You mean like the atmosphere. I think you meant the team-wise.
Broncos are going to Seattle for the first game.
Yeah. You meant atmosphere. I thought you meant like the Seahawks are going to be a tougher opponent than the Steelers. So
No. I think the Steelers. Well, I mean, Russ is very good.
Yeah.
I mean, the Broncos had no weapons last year. At least we have a good running back, a good receiver. You had Sutton. Sutton was your best receiver last year and this year. I mean, he's not. I don't know.
Smash the over, folks. Smash the over for the Broncos.
Agree.
I don't think we're going 9 wins. I don't think we're going to have like a great year, but I do think we'll get 6-7 wins. Really, everybody outside the Chiefs in this division aren't really competing for much, to be honest with you, besides maybe the Raiders. But I think 5.5 is just a ridiculous line for the Broncos. The NFC West is next.
Oh, do you want to rank them? Let's rank them.
So we have Oh, you're right. I always forget.
It's
I'm
okay.
forgetting about that. So let's rank these teams 1 through 4. Nimmer, why don't you go first? Who's first, second, third, last?
I think, obviously, like you said, it's the Chiefs division. It's going to be the Chiefs division for another 5-10 years. And so it's going to be Chiefs. I put the Raiders above the Chargers, and then the Chargers above the Broncos, and then Broncos are going to be dead last.
Darren, what do you think?
So for me, I have two outcomes based on some of the metrics that I mentioned to you. I think the first one, which is more likely to happen, is Chiefs come out on top, Chargers eke by in second, Raiders, and then Broncos finishing last. But what I would want to see happen and could see happening if the Chargers just tank is Chiefs winning it, Raiders coming in second, Broncos just on their heels in third, and then Chargers finishing last and being a top 5 overall pick in this year's upcoming draft. But realistically, I do think it's going to be Chiefs, Chargers, Raiders, Broncos.
Yeah, so we're all in agreement here. I think Chiefs first, Raiders second, Chargers third, Broncos last. The Chiefs are like the golden star in this division. Really, I think the other 3 teams are going to have very similar records, 6, 7, 8 wins. And the Chiefs will just be looking down at 13-3 or whatever it is, and we'll be waiting for the next 10 years to pass with the Chiefs. So let's go to the NFC West. This is a fun division. We have the 49ers, who just went to the Super Bowl last year, have all these stars that we just talked about. Star power is all over the field with that team. The Rams, who are kind of in like a redemption era, went to the Super Bowl the following year, weren't that great. Last year, a little better. Now they're looking at an 8.5 win line. The Seattle Seahawks, 7.5 wins, and the Cardinals also at 7.5 wins. So I'll start with you, Darian. What do you think over under 11.5 wins for the Niners?
I'm smashing the over. Just with the key signings of Ayuk and Trent Williams today, you're solidifying that team. It's basically the same core that you had last year that made the Super Bowl run. I think they hit the over here just with that star power on offense and that defense being just as tenacious as they are. They're hitting the over on this. I think they'll be at 13 wins.
Nimmer, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's hard to lose with such star power. You know, you need one of the best quarterbacks opposing you in order to beat you. That being said, I think they have 12 wins. I think they go 1-1 with the Rams, and then they beat the Seahawks and the Cardinals outright, just like last year. So 12 wins.
Yeah.
I'm hitting the over.
I agree. I see 12 wins. I was looking at their schedule, and it's not terribly difficult. It has some good challengers out there. I mean, this first game against the Jets is going to be a pretty good challenge, I think. But I have them just over that line at 12 wins. The Los Angeles Rams, Nimmer, what do you think? Over, under 8.5 wins?
I think the Rams are gonna, like you said, I think it's more of like a rebuilding year, but it's more like rebuilding, but they're still pretty good. I have them going 1-1 with the Niners, Cardinals, and Seahawks. I think they win, they beat everybody in the division, but they also lose to everybody in the division. And I think they played the Cardinals, I think it was last year, and they barely beat them 17-16 with Kyler Murray. And they're at home, and it was after a bye. So that's kind of concerning. So I think that they'll go 1-1 in every within every team. So, but I have them going slightly under. I have them at 8 wins.
Darren, what do you think?
Honestly, the same track as Nimmer. I honestly couldn't have said it better. I don't think they split wins across the board. I think they take one extra loss from the 49ers. I don't think they beat them at all. But I do have them on the slight under at 8 wins. I think, just as Nimmer put it, kind of in that still revamp period, coming off of that Super Bowl high. I think they're piecing it together, just piece by piece. I think next year could be a really good year for them, but this year I think it's mediocrity that they're going to be seeing down the road, being at 8 and 9.
Yeah, so there's been some key losses for the Rams this offseason. Losing Morris, their defensive coordinator, is a big loss, I think. Losing Aaron Donald to retirement, that's a big loss, I think. I really can't name a lot of stars on their defense. I'm excited to watch Jared Verse. But outside of him, I don't really know what they're kind of presenting on defense. The offensive side, there's some good pieces: Cooper Kupp, Puka, Stafford, Kyron. Probably a average offensive line. So I think they're a good team. I think that's a tough line, to be honest with you. I could see them either hitting 8 or 9 wins. So I'm going to go with the under. I'm going to say they get 8 wins and the Rams hit the under there. And now we have the Seattle Seahawks. They're at 7.5 wins. Number, what do you think?
I think that the Seahawks are gonna go 1-1 with the Rams and the Cardinals, but go over with 0-2 against the Niners. I think that they have DK, Kenneth Walker, and that's it. I don't think that they have anything else.
Lockett, baby. You never forget about
He's
Lockett.
old though. You can't. I mean,
Doesn't matter. That boy is
No.
consistent.
he's not gonna carry the team to a win though. And they lost Pete Carroll, and I think Pete Carroll was really the thing that really held the whole entire team together. Who's their coach again? They just got
Mike McDonald.
Mike
Yeah.
McDonald. So I think that he's gonna have a tough time becoming a first year head coach, right?
Yep.
I don't know too much about him, so yeah. So I think that's gonna definitely affect the team. So I have them at 6 wins. So I'm hitting the under.
Darren, what do you think?
Didn't they keep Pete in office though?
He's
the organization, right?
yeah, he's like an administrative guy now.
Mhm. I mean, I could see him. I don't really know what his role is. If he's perhaps like player development, that's something huge that Pete has always been about, is developing his players to the full potential. And so, if he's still in office, I think he's rubbing on some of these players and still helping them grow. I don't think they have an amazing year, but I do think they just above 500 and are at 9 wins this season. So I'm going with the over.
Wow.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, actually. I like Seattle this year. I'll talk a little bit more about them later, but I like their new head coach. I think he's the youngest head coach in the league right now. And really, you can't overlook their offense. Kenneth Walker coming out of the backfield, even his backup Charbonnet, I think, has a place here in the NFL. DK, they said that they're going to get him the ball more. He's going to be the focal point of the offense this year. I think that's the right move. JSN, he's arising. There's a lot of hype around him right now. And Tyler Lockett, I've been watching him since his K-State days. He was a monster there. He's been very consistent his whole career. So I have them going over, I'm going to say 8 or 9 wins, just like Darian said. And now we have the Arizona Cardinals. So Cardinals have Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison. That'll be a really fun combination to watch this year. Nimmer, what do you think? Over or under 7.5 wins?
So I'm from Arizona, so I guess I have to go with the over. I have them just going over. I have them at 8 wins. Last year they had Kyler for half the season, and they had Dobbs. The first half, which kind of was very inconsistent, to say the least. And I think he only won like 1 or 2 games when he was the starting quarterback. Granted, Kyler didn't really do a lot, but with the Niners, Niners, the Cardinals, I have them going 1-1 with the Rams and Seahawks, and then not beating the 49ers. I think the 49ers defense is just too strong, too packed, too amazing, too just incredible for Kyler Murray to just kind of dance around like he does in the pocket. But we'll touch on the Cardinals a little later. So I have them at 8 wins.
So Nimmer's got the over. Darren, what do you have for the Cardinals?
This one was a tough one for me overall. Like, I know who's on their offense: Kyler, James Conner. You have Trey Benson as their rookie backup. You have Trey McBride, Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch. I love that offense. It's going to help win some games, but quite frankly, I don't know who the hell is on their defense besides Baker. And I know they lost a couple of key assets on the defensive line. One of my buddies, Lucky Fotu, he actually just went to the Jets. It was a massive part of their defensive line, being like their nose tackle, even like a 3 technique and soaking up blockers. I don't know if they even replaced anyone to fill his hole. So with that, I don't know what's going on that defensive side. It could be something of interest to watch down the line if they are active and keeping them in games. But I had to go with the under here just because of that question mark on defense. And I think they're probably around 6 wins, 7 being the ceiling. So just under on that line.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's going to be a lot of really cool highlights that come out of the Cardinals this year with Marvin Harrison there and Kyler Murray dealing like he was a couple of years ago. I just don't know how they're going to fare in this division. It's a pretty tough division for them. And outside of that, I kind of line up their skill positions with other skill positions in the league, and I'm always kind of picking the other team over them, to be honest. So I would say probably 6 wins. So I'm going to give them the under. Why don't we go ahead and rank them? Nimmer, why don't you start? Who's first, second, third, last?
I mean, I think this is just like the AFC West. I think this is going to be the Niners division until they can't pay these guys no more. I think it goes Niners, and I think the Rams squeak by the Cardinals. I think the Rams go second, Cardinals go third, and Seahawks finish last.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a wow, honestly.
Darren, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I got 49ers on top. Coming in second is the Seahawks, followed right behind them with the Rams, and then finishing last, unfortunately, is the Cardinals. That is how I think the rankings will shake out.
I have that same order: Niners, Seahawks, Rams, Cardinals. I'm surprised you said last, Nim. That's pretty.
That's wild.
I just don't see it. I mean, I could be wrong, but I just don't see the Seahawks doing that well. I think that there's that Pete Carroll I think the head coach is really the thing that drove the Seahawks really well. I don't think Gino's going to have a good season this year, as good of a season as he did last year. And I just think that the Cardinals and the Rams are going to do better than them.
Well, let's see if I can change your mind when we start talking about the surprising teams later.
Maybe. You changed my mind about the Broncos, so I actually want to kind of rechange my order to Chiefs, Raiders, Broncos, and Chargers. But
David, I see that you're in the chat. We appreciate having you here. We are going to do your roster report card here soon, so stick around. We will be back here in 2 minutes, a shorter break than normal, but we were back here in 2 minutes. Welcome back to the Do Not Disturb Football Podcast. We are trying out new break times just because we wanted to see if maybe we can kind of hurry things up with the breaks. We felt like 5 minutes was a little too long for the viewers, so we are trying 2 minutes. And that means we got to kind of hurry things up while we're on
Yeah,
break.
sorry. I thought I had way more time than I than I anticipated. I was literally just standing there and I just saw the blank screen. I was like,
I
"Crap."
I went to the bathroom and I thought I was gonna be late. I was like, oh,
Same.
I'm trying to count down in my head if I'm right here. But
Pushing it out like a fire hose.
so we got our surprise teams first, and then we're gonna do those report cards that you guys are all waiting for. Let's get into surprise teams. So the surprising teams, we're all gonna pick surprising teams, one from each conference, the AFC and the NFC. We'll give you a team and we'll give you a reason why we think these teams are going to be exciting and surprising. These don't have to be teams that make the playoffs. They can just be teams that kind of win more games than you think, or they could be actual teams that do make the playoffs and no one's really seeing that coming. So Darian, why don't you go first with your surprising teams?
Yeah, honestly, this team has been growing on me. I think I had them on the under when we last did the NFC North, but just the more I look at them, the more excited I am for this season for the Bears being one of the most surprising teams. Um, just with that, they have a rookie QB in Caleb Williams, a new franchise QB. They brought in massive talent with Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift. Their defense is solid. They have Jaquan Brisker, Jalen Johnson, Tremaine Edmonds. I think they even have Byard. So they have all this talent on both sides of the ball. And they also have the fifth easiest schedule this year. So with that combination, it's a recipe for success. So I kind of want to change my mind on my original analysis of that stat line. I think they smashed the over going in this season, and they potentially could be a playoff team. So I'm really, really hopeful for this Bears team going forward this season. And then the next one, I kind of touched on them a moment ago, the Denver Broncos. I've never really been one to say let's ride, but shit, Bo Nix. Hey, Bo Nix got me hyped up. I'm ready to go.
You think he's gonna have a catchphrase too?
Sure.
Please, God, no, please no.
But man, I don't know what it is. I think the uniforms grew on me too. Bo Nix has been playing his ass off in the preseason. Sean Payton has his franchise QB going forward. I think this is a turning of a new leaf for Denver and bringing it back to, I believe it was 2015 that we were cheering for him in the Super Bowl against Carolina. I think some brighter days are in the future for the Broncos. So, hey, let's ride.
Well, man, that makes me excited. I love hearing that. I don't know how surprising they'll be, but I do think they will surprise some people. I'll go next. So the AFC, I have the Las Vegas Raiders. And I know as a Broncos fan, you're probably not expecting me to say this, but I think I've been taking a lot of what people are saying for the Raiders almost personal. I feel like I'm like defending the Raiders more than I should. And I'll give you some stats to why I think they're going to be better than what people think. Antonio Pierce last year finished with a 5-4 record. That is the highest winning percentage among Raiders coaches since 1987. God. A lot of bad coaches that went through there. But that 5-4 record was something that jumped off the page. He was 3-1 against AFC West opponents, including the Chiefs, and a 63-point performance against the Chargers. When Antonio Pierce took over, they had the fewest penalties in the NFL over those weeks. He brought them into top 10 in takeaways on defense, also third in sacks. And now you have Christian Wilkins on that defensive line. So I think even more sacks are coming. I see some really good things for the Raiders this year. Like I said earlier, I think they're going to finish second in the division. People are saying this is a horrible team. This is an awful team. Not on this show. We are not saying that on this show.
No.
The big networks, though, I've heard multiple people say the Raiders are going to be an awful team, and I know they're listening to that. That is the exact team in the NFL you do not want to say that about. So I think they're going to surprise a lot of people.
How
And
are they
for
about?
my
I'm trying to think of like what. Why are they saying it? Because Devonte Adams is old. Like Zamir, I just don't understand. Like I understand the quarterbacks. Okay, maybe the offensive line is a little iffy, but then that's it. Like you said, the defense is really good, and then Devonte Adams still top 5 in the league, and Zamir White did really well when AP was coach. So then, how are they a bad team? I don't know.
and someone would argue that the quarterback play is going to improve with Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, they had Jimmy Garoppolo last year. Like, what the heck?
So that makes them an even better team.
Mhm.
So yeah, I don't really understand that either. I don't really understand where people are saying that this is going to be a bad team. I think it ultimately comes down to them not having a superstar quarterback, and two, it's Antonio Pierce's full season as a head coach. But I think Antonio Pierce can definitely coach. From the stats I just said, I think that definitely shows he can be a good coach in the NFL, and I think they're going to surprise a lot of people. For the NFC, I have the Seattle Seahawks. We kind of touched on this earlier. I will give you some stats for the Seahawks. Number one, they drafted Byron Murphy Jr. To me, he was one of the highest graded defensive players in this last draft. I think he's going to bring a whole new look to their defense on their defensive line. They had some highlights last year in their secondary with Tyreek Woolen and Devin Witherspoon playing very well. Woolen has dealt with some injuries that has kind of made his play look a little worse than it actually should. I think he'll get back on track. Mike McDonald, he was the defensive coordinator for the Ravens last year. They were league best in 16.5 points per game in 2023. And also they were first in sacks and takeaways. I think that defense is going to turn around quickly. I think they are going to be one of those, probably another one of those defenses you could look at in the waiver wire and think about picking up. I think they're probably 1 year behind with Geno still there. I think Geno's a respectable quarterback in this league. He can only take you so far. So I think their plan is probably draft quarterback here soon or trade for a quarterback, but play as hard as you can this year. And I think their defense is going to look pretty good this year. I think as long as Mike McDonald is there, that defense is only going to get better and better. And I see them as the second place team in that division. Probably not playoffs though for either of these teams. Maybe Seattle. Maybe Seattle sneaks in there for the last wild card spot.
Yeah.
I could see them in the NFC.
I can see the Raiders getting the last playoff spot as well.
Yeah, it'll be close. There's a lot of really good teams in the AFC, but Nimmer, who do you got? Who's your surprise teams?
All right, so my surprise team is kind of touched on this earlier, is the Arizona Cardinals. I think last year, without Kyler having a full season, with Romeo Dobbs, first year head coach, the whole pew 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 pew, that thing kind of got into his head. But I think this year is going to be a little different. They got 4 wins last year, and they beat both Dallas and the Eagles. And Dallas had arguably the best defense, and then the Eagles also, I think they won. No, they got second in that division, but they were the Eagles are the Eagles, and both of those wins or the Dallas win was without Kyler Murray. So, and then with Kyler Murray, he played 8 games, so he played almost half the season. Out of those 8 games, the top receiver were the top player with the most receptions. Only 4 of the games were a receiver. So that means 4 of the games were either McBride. I think I saw Connor in there one time. Like, so now that he has Marvin Harrison Jr., I think that's going to open up the whole entire playbook. I mean, plus they got 2 D tackles, 2 linebackers, a cornerback, an offensive tackle, and offensive guard in the offseason. So I think that is going to be. Will they make the playoffs? Probably not, but I think that they're going to definitely surprise a lot of people, and I do think that they are going to maybe go third. Now that the Seahawks, they might still finish 4th, but I still think that they're going to be a tougher team than last year. Then that's for the NFC. So for the AFC now. I have to go with my Steelers. Now, this is the non-bias, okay? So I'm not biased. Originally, I was going to do the Raiders. I 100% agree with Drew that the Raiders are going to be the most surprising team in the AFC. However, I think the second team that is going to surprise people are the Steelers. And now, my non-biased Steelers self is the Steelers have arguably the best offseason, definitely in franchise history, but throughout the whole entire league. They got 2 quarterbacks, so even if Russ isn't the guy, we still have Justin Fields. So, and we didn't pay them $50 million a year or whatever the case may be. We're literally we got them from Goodwill pretty much. Like, so we didn't get a salary cap hit or anything like that. So it's a win-win situation. We got our biggest addition was Patrick Queen. I think he's going to be a monster. This is the first time since Shazier was on the Steelers that we had a legitimate middle linebacker. So that's going to be a huge pick. And then we also added cornerback Dante Johnson. We got Cordell Patterson, which I think is going to be huge for the Steelers, and their kickoff return. I think the Steelers defense, even though we're in a hard division, I think that I don't even think those quarterbacks are good enough for Goodwill.
It's crazy.
But just wait, because we don't even need them to be good, honestly. We just need them not to turn it over. So we don't need them to be a Patrick Mahomes. We don't need them to be a Peyton Manning. We don't need them to be good. They came from Savers. That's funny. But back to Cordell Patterson. If the Steelers would be a great defensive team to pick up on fantasy, just because of the whole kickoff return, I think that's going to score us some. That's going to win us a lot of games, actually. And that's 6 points right there. And we have Van Jefferson, which isn't like a huge ad, but still a pretty, it's an okay receiver. And we got Roman Wilson as he's not a bad receiver. I didn't say he's a good receiver, but he's an okay receiver. He'll get you 1 or 2 catches a game. And we got Roman Wilson. We drafted Roman Wilson. What did you say? You said okay.
You just said okay.
Fuck you guys. I think this No, but this is me being non-biased, honestly. Even if we stink, I do think that the Steelers, the only question mark we really have, obviously, is the quarterbacks. But the fact that we have 2 quarterbacks is kind of he came from Goodwill. Now, he came from Goodwill, just not the quarterbacks. But I think the fact that we have 2 quarterbacks, if we just signed Russ, then yeah, I'd be a little weary. But the fact that we got Justin Fields as well, kind of makes me feel a little safer, as well as the only question mark really is the offensive line. But I mean, I don't want to say Russ. I just need Russ not to throw interceptions and turn the ball over a lot, which he didn't. I think he was number 10 in non-intercept or like not throwing interceptions. So and we got Arthur Smith, which brought the Tennessee Titans, who only really had Derrick Henry and AJ Brown, who had Ryan Tannehill as quarterback, and we all know how that turned out. So he doesn't need a good quarterback to be in with that offensive scheme. So yeah, that's my tangent about the Steelers. I think the Steelers are going to surprise a lot of people.
Yeah, I think the
Yeah.
bias bled in there a little bit though, but
All right, the bias came when you guys started roasting my Steelers. All right, that's when the bias came.
Well, you said Van Jefferson's pretty good. He'll give you one catch
I
a game.
didn't
It's like
say
what-
pretty good. I said he's
Like, all right.
okay. I didn't say pretty good. Roll the tape back. I said he's okay. He's an okay receiver.
Nimmer was talking about the Steelers for this segment, and he said, I'm a little nervous about being or showing some bias." And I said, Nimmer, we wore our favorite team's jersey for the entire first episode. Bias is out the window.
Yeah, I don't know.
I am a little interested about Cordell Patterson. That was one of the names you brought up. During the preseason, they had him in the backfield, which he was doing in Atlanta, and he knows Arthur Smith's system. He was just there in Atlanta with him. So he might be someone you want to take a look at in the waiver wire. I don't know what it's going to look like when Warren gets back, but maybe for the first couple weeks of the season, maybe Cordell is a nice little pickup you can throw in there at times.
I mean, honestly, think about that Wildcat formation. We have Justin Fields as quarterback, Cordell Patterson, Najee Harris, and Jaylen Warren, and Pickens, who's a pretty fast receiver. Like that Wildcat formation is going to be pretty nasty, I think.
And then Russ has the seat warmer.
Yeah.
Hey, just don't throw interceptions. That's all you need to do. That's what the Steelers are gonna do. They're just gonna make sure they're gonna run the ball. They're gonna make our defense win us games. Just as long as the defense doesn't have the opposing offense score a lot, we just need 1 or 2 touchdowns. Don't turn the ball over. Don't make stupid decisions. We'll be good.
Yeah, as a guy that's watched Russ for the past 2 years, he doesn't turn the ball over a ton, but he does take a ton of sacks. So that will be something you see. And there are some moments where you don't need the turnover. It's like the time exactly when you don't need it and someone strips the ball from him or something. So that is something I would worry about.
That
for
is
the
one thing
Steelers.
I am worried. I think that there's so much pressure on him because people are like, this is going to be his destiny. This is going to be his legacy. You know, this is how he saves his legacy. But just adding pressure and pressure and pressure. And I think that he's going to just try to hold the ball a little too long and, like you said, just keep getting sacks. But I'm not praying, but I think that the Arthur Smith is going to kind of, and Mike Tomlin. I think Mike Tomlin is going to be a huge factor. I mean, granted, him and Russ and Sean Payton did not get along at all. So I think that now that Tomlin and Russ have a better relationship, I think that's going to kind of calm him down a little bit more, even though Justin Fields is kind of nipping at his heels.
Yeah, I think they already see that Fields is probably the better quarterback for the system. It's just a matter of time. And kind of like you said, Arthur Smith made Tannehill look brilliant at times. So I think Justin Fields could get in there and look pretty good at times.
Yeah. Or even Russ. I mean, I don't think that Tannehill's that much better than Russ.
A lot more mobile.
Yeah, I don't know. Russ is kind of a little, like, I think he's just as mobile as Tannehill at that age. Weren't they the same age at the time? Tannehill was pretty old when he was on the Titans.
Yeah, that was like his third team, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was at Miami first.
Mm-hmm. But those are our surprising teams. If you're tired of hearing us talk about the Steelers, it's not going to stop. So
not one bit until we start. Yeah, no, we're not. I'm never going to stop talking about them.
Now we've got the roster report cards. David, Terry, we are going to come to you guys soon. We have Taji first, right? Is that right, Nim? So the first report card, we have 444.taji on Instagram and TikTok. He's been in the DMs asking me about trades. He wants to trade Waddle, which I don't know why he wants to do that. I've advised him not to do that every time, but it's cool to have him watching our show and kind of reaching out as much as he does. So
Shout
why
out
don't we
Taji.
do why don't we do his report card? Nimmer, why don't you start?
So I love the quarterback, both running backs, both receivers, and the tight end. I'm not too high on the last three. I think that you should replace Sutton with Williams, especially if it's in a PPR league. If it's not, then I get why you put a running back there. Vikings defense, you might want to change that to maybe the Falcons defense. This is a 12-man league. He was pick number 8. But other than that, it's a great lineup. His bench is pretty good. I'm really high on Sutton this year, as well as Herbert and Wicks. We kind of mentioned Wicks as one of the players that kind of to look out for when we did the Green Bay Packers wide receiving core. And I love how you drafted Hawkinson and then put him on the IR, and then you had that extra pick essentially. I think that was a really, really good move, great strategy. But overall, I probably would give this a B plus, A minus.
Darren, what do you think?
Yeah, I gotta agree. I love the combination of Kyron and Kenneth Walker as your two starting running backs. Both, if it is a PPR league, they do have pass catching upside. Uh, Leaning more on Kyron for that and his dynamic ability. But I love your wide receivers. Pairing Chase with Waddle, huge. I love that. Don't trade Waddle. I think he's due for a huge year, barring if he can stay healthy and isn't injured. So just be mindful week in and week out with your wide receivers. Um, I do like Kincaid. I think that was a solid pick. He's going to be a top 5 tight end this year. So you have a ton of upside in that aspect with your wide receivers and running backs. I also am not mad at Javante being your third running back. I think it's a pretty solid pick. It's safe. I don't think he's going to get you a ton of points, but he's definitely a solid bet for your flex RB. And I think your bench is decent. I'm not too sold on Sutton this year. To be opposite of Nimmer, he was touchdown dependent last year. He had 10 touchdowns, which is huge, and he hasn't posted that kind of stat line before in his career. Nor has he posted 1,000 yards since I think it was his third or second year. So be mindful there in how you utilize him. Love Lockett as usual. Hubbard, great pickup. And I love that you picked up Polk as well for New England. Overall, I do agree with Nimmer. It is a B plus team at the root of it. I think you can play the defense carousel week in and week out because I don't think Vikings D is going to be the strength going for the entire season. But overall, definitely a great draft at where you were in the being at 8, I believe you said.
Yeah, pick 8, 12-man league, and I think the Vikings would be are going to be a good defense this week because they're playing the Giants. But if you're able to, like do that defensive carousel, like Darian said, that would be a great thing.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Tajay. I was pretty surprised hearing this was a 12-man league. Looking at this team, I can't imagine there's a ton of teams better than yours. So I think you're going to be getting a good grade here. Anthony Richardson, I've shared some worry about him, but he's on your team. He's going to be good. It's just a matter if he can stay healthy. Kyron Williams, I think, is solid. Kenneth Walker, very solid. Those two guys together, I think, are a pretty good combination. I think if you had someone else, say like Joe Mixon and Kyron Williams, your grade would go down. But Kenneth Walker, I think, is very solid for you. Ja'Marr Chase, hopefully that deal gets done. If it does, I think that's an A-plus pick for your first-round pick. Jalen Waddle, I think, is going to be great this year. I would not trade him. You've come to us asking if you should trade him for Deebo Samuel and someone else. I can't remember, but I would not do that. I would hold on to Waddle. Really, I think when you look at this team, your starters are very solid. The one thing you're probably going to be thinking about rotating is your flex and your defense. So I would just be a little tune into every game. Like Darian said, I'm not too high on Sutton this year. I think with a new quarterback, it's going to look different in Denver, and he might not get the ball as much as he did last year. There's a chance Curtis Samuel is a decent player in Buffalo, so he might be your guy that you want to rotate in there. Wicks also has upside. Polk also has upside. Hubbard could be good for the first half of the season. So I would start with Javonte like you have now. If Javonte ever starts to slip and say Jaleel McLaughlin starts taking some of his snaps, you might want to think about rotating some of those other guys in there. But overall, I think this is a good team. I'm going to give you an A- for a 12-man league. I think this is an A- team.
Yeah, this is better than some of our 10-man leagues,
Yeah.
10-man teams. That's
Yeah.
insane. So, good
Definitely.
drafting, Taji.
Who do we have next?
Terry.
Terry.
Terry
Tazza.
Yam. Here we go.
Oh,
Terry the Yam Man is what I call him. All right. Let's grade his team. I know Terry's been waiting on this. Darian, why don't you start?
Terry. He was what? You were pick 101?
Yeah, in a 12-man league.
Pick one. Yep.
Terry. What happened? All right. I mean, my guess of what your first 3 picks were was CMC definitely at 101. I think you followed in second round, picking up Marvin Harrison, and then flipping, getting Kelsey in the third. If that's actually how you drafted, I think where you may have gone wrong was Kelsey in the third round. I would have bolstered my running back because my RB2 being Pollard is scary. That it hurts. Just seeing him there as a starter, honestly, when there was probably a ton of talent there in the third round, knowing how some of these running backs were drafted in our draft and others that I've seen, they kind of fell down the board. So Pollard sticking out like a sore thumb. I'm not too sold on him. McLaurin being your wide receiver 2, I think is a great pick as well. Wherever you got him, great value. I saw a stat that Washington and how Cliff Kingsbury puts his wide receivers, he puts them to where they catch with their dominant hand up top. So he's been mainly on the left side of the field with his route running tree. So with that also being with Jaden Daniels being a right-handed QB throwing that way, it's going to sure up a lot of yards and perhaps touchdowns for McLaurin. I think that's a great pick down the line. Adunze, I think it's a safe pick for a rookie. I don't love him as a starting flex. I feel like there could have been a lot of value elsewhere, but you got to roll with it. Keon Coleman on your bench, great pickup too. I think you can flip flop Adunze at that flex going forward. Dobbins, another good pickup. A little worried about him and just coming off that injury, see how that works out. I think you got to drop Elijah Mitchell just being on IR, find something else there. Obviously, you sent this screenshot before you did anything else, so we don't know if you did drop him. But overall,
So it hits a little different with the viewers.
yeah, man. I love you, Tazza, but this was not a good draft. I got to give it a C. It's average. It's not going to win you your league unless you make some damn good trades and waiver wire is your best friend. But yeah, it's a C for me, dog.
Nimmer, what do you think?
Yeah, I love you, Terry. But I don't think it was really that. But you do have a little bit of potential, especially with Marvin Harrison Jr., McLaurin. Yeah, Joshua Johnson. You're right. Yeah, Yahoo yelled at, or ESPN yelled at me too, Josh. But I like McCaffrey. I like your quarterback. I mean, you have a solid quarterback 1 and a solid quarterback 2. Love your defense. The fact that you have the Ravens defense, which I'm not too high on, but I think they're still going to be a good fantasy defense. And if they don't work out, then you still have the Lions defense, which is great. I think Darian's right. You probably could have gone somewhere else besides Pollard, but I think your running backs are going to be your Achilles heel. I think that J.K. Dobbins wouldn't be the best backup or RB3. So, and I agree with Darian. I would switch a Doomsday with Keon Coleman. But I love Travis Kelce. I think that he's still, especially with the whole Taylor Swift thing, I think that he's going to do really good. Tough matchup for Ravens. Yeah, so I definitely probably would do, but the Lions also have a pretty tough matchup with Sam Bradford and the Rams. But I probably would switch the Ravens defense and the Lions defense. You're right, David. But
you say Sam Bradford?
Did I?
Stafford.
Yeah.
Stafford,
Yeah.
sorry. I thought that
I'm gonna go back
weird,
to 08, bro.
I know.
Shit.
I was like, do we just travel back in time?
Sorry, I meant Sam.
Matt Stafford.
Yeah, Matt Stafford. Sorry. Yeah, it's been a long day.
Sorry, I noticed that. I was like, wait.
Yeah, but I think the Lions. You probably want to substitute the Ravens and the Lions and Coleman for Doomsday. And if you do have Mitchell still on IR and you still are really high on him, Sam Bradford a throwback. Yeah, you're right, Josh. And so if you're high on Mitchell, then you can just put him into the IR spot and grab somebody else. That's a strategy, just like Taji did before. But overall, I would give this I probably would give this a C as well, just because your running backs are a little slack in there.
Mhm.
But Darian made it seem like you're gonna get like a D or F.
I mean, I also failed to mention that I don't think this is a PPR league. So in those leagues outside of PPR, it's a running back heavy or running back favorable league. So definitely, if you're obviously you probably wouldn't be drafting before this coming day unless you're Nimmer. I think you have one draft tonight.
Yeah,
But
in an hour and 30 minutes.
yeah, non PPR leagues, running backs are favorable in points just because obviously you're missing out on points for your wide receiver. So going into that next year, Terry, if this is non PPR, running backs off the board first, and then you can kind of backtrack on wide receivers.
And honestly, in Terry's defense, 101 in a 12-man league is actually like a really hard position
It's
to
hard.
draft. So the fact that you do have two good receivers, Travis Kelce's two defenses, CJ and Jared Goff, you did pretty well drafting. But like Darian said, I think this is C plus ish. Yeah, I wouldn't give it a B minus, but I'd probably give it a C plus.
Yeah, so let me talk about Terry real quick. Terry is one of those guys. Terry's one of those guys that you see and you're just happy to see him. Like wherever you are, wherever he is, you are just happy when Terry walks in the room. He's such a good dude, has such a good sense of humor, very understanding person, great smile, probably grade A smile. Now let's get into your team. So I'm going to assume the same. I'm going to assume you went Christian McCaffrey 1, Marvin Harrison 2, Travis Kelce 3. Travis Kelce 3 was the biggest mistake. Travis Kelce at 3, round 3, that was the biggest mistake. If I was sitting behind you on your shoulder during the draft and you were about to take Travis Kelce, Terry, I'd slap you in the face and I'd say, no, wait for the tight end. Just wait. I would say take someone from the running back category because there's a lot of talent there. You can get a tight end later. Now you're stuck with Tony Pollard as your RB2. We've talked pretty poorly about Tony Pollard throughout this podcast. So I think you're kind of rolling with you're kind of rolling the dice with Tony Pollard. Maybe the first half of the season he's going to be good. I'm assuming that second half, I just feel like he's going to fall off a cliff. And points wise, I don't think he's going to be doing a whole lot for you. So that's what the waiver wire is for. You'll have plenty of running backs that pop up out of nowhere. Grab them immediately, Terry. You cannot roll with Tony Pollard as your RB2. So I really like CJ Stroud as your quarterback. I like McCaffrey. Love Marvin Harrison. McLaurin is going to give you some weeks where he's really good. Kelsey, good tight end, is going to be in that top 5 range all year. Rome, I actually think Rome could be surprising this year. So that flex option, you have a few options there, probably either Rome Odunze, Keon Coleman, and Dobbins. I don't really expect much out of Dobbins, but I could be completely wrong. It seems to me, watching the preseason, Caleb Williams is looking for Rome every single time he's passing the ball. So I think Rome could be someone that gets a little bit more points than we're actually expecting. I like having the 2 defenses that you have, and then you have Justin Tucker, who I'm assuming you picked in a reasonable round. So I'm going to give you, Terry, Terry, why don't you answer in the comment right now? Is it PPR or is it non-PPR? We'll wait. Because that's going to give you the grade.
Oh, no, the pressure.
Maybe it's gonna be too long. I'm gonna give you a C-, Terry. Reasonable.
I think
I'm gonna give it
be a delay.
Yeah. I'm gonna give Terry a C-.
Damn, D territory.
Not a terrible team, but I think you're probably middle in the pack of your league with this team.
So is this worse than Quaz's team, though?
This is better than Quaz's team.
Okay. And you gave him a C-. Interesting.
What did I give Quaz?
A C.
C.
Ooh. Hey, some days I'm feeling meaner.
So now I look like the dick because I gave him a D.
Okay. So let's get David next.
David.
So David was what pick was he?
He was pick 7 in a 10-man league.
Okay. Damn, he got CeeDee Lamb.
Bro, this
Bro,
man was
who is drafting? Who's in your league? What is happening?
What is this?
How?
Is this real?
I have no idea. I don't.
How do you have CD, Barkley, Mahomes?
Not a full PPR.
So
Probably
he's
half,
got like half PPR.
league, probably.
Okay. Nimmer, why don't you go first on this grade?
Yeah, I mean, as all our reactions, I just want to know who's in your league so I can join it because this is ridiculous how you got this this amount. Great starters. Not too high on Debo, but assuming that you got him probably in the 4th round, which is appropriate, maybe 5th, which is appropriate. Barkley gonna be top 5. Running back. Etienne's going to be top 10 running back. CD's arguably going to be the number 1 receiver. Njoku, I am really high on him. He did really good last year. He's an animal. The fact that he got his whole face burnt off and he still played, just unbelievable. Kamaro's a great PPR. Is it full PPR? Okay. Yeah, he's a great PPR running back. So the fact that he's on your flex, which on most rosters he's RB2, is insane. Calvin Ridley he's still a wide receiver 1, even though people aren't high on him. I'm pretty high on him. The fact that I think Will Levis will do pretty good this year. The only person I really probably would drop is Goddard. I know you probably want a backup tight end, but honestly, no, in this league, probably freaking Travis Kelce is on the waiver wire. So pick him up. No, or Fryermuth. Ferguson would be a great option. Even though like I have Ferguson and Lamb in one of my leagues, and I'm not too hot. I don't really like that because then you're kind of double dipping and relying on the Cowboys to do really well, which really isn't gonna do well that this year. But yeah, I mean A+. This is definitely the best roster we've seen on the pod.
Darren, what do you think?
Man, you came out swinging. To anyone that let CD slide to pick 7 in a 10-man league, you need to slap every single one of them. Bro, that kind of talent, that wide receiver 1 to the 7th is crazy. Love you, Terry. But yeah, this is an insane draft. Getting CD Lamb, I imagine that you followed up with Barkley on the turn, which is nuts because then you probably followed with Etienne in the 3rd, Debo in the 4th, and then I that's it's so hard to wrap my head around because like I'm just flabbergasted because like how I would normally draft all these people would be gone, but the fact that you got them all is nuts. But to that point, there is a heavy stack on week 12 bye weeks with Etienne, Kamara, and T. Higgins. So that's going to be a pretty hard week. So you better hope that you have a winning record and are in a good spot.
I mean, he should be. He should
should,
have a winning
yeah.
record.
5th round.
Holy shit, dude. Yeah, man. I mean, you got a solid team through and through. What else did I say? I mean, Debo, I like pairing with CD and T. Higgins. You're in PPR heaven when it comes to those running backs with Barkley, Etienne, and Kamara. That's huge. I mean, like Nimmer said, I dropped Goddard. Same thing. Knowing this league, yeah, you probably have Fryermuth still out there. You probably have Schultz. Brock Bowers is probably out there. Yeah, I mean, you have some safe bets to, just drop somebody the week of. And then Michael Wilson's huge. Palmer, huge. Those are some of my top sleepers, along with Greg Dortch for the Cardinals. Love that you have Ford. You're going to have him for the first couple of weeks, which is huge. And you have Ridley that is due for some kind of breakout season. I don't know if it's breakout, but yeah, all in all, this is an A+ team. Like maybe I'd say A+, like that range. You're very, very close to A+.
He said that all his bench covers the bye weeks, so he's good on the bye weeks.
Yeah, true that. So
yeah, I don't know how this happened. So this is my thinking here. Either this is not a real team, David, or you have like a bunch of fantasy geniuses in your league and they're picking like Zamir White with the 2nd round pick or something.
Or like a family league and all first timers.
Yeah, that's where I'm like, I don't know how you have, just looking at the running backs alone, Saquon Barkley, Etienne, Kamara, Ford on the bench. That's like stacked. The receivers are insane. CeeDee Lamb, T. Higgins, Debo, Calvin Ridley, all those guys are going to produce.
And Josh Palmer. I mean, I think he's
Josh Palmer on the bench is solid. Michael Wilson could show some promise here. I don't know how you ended up with this team. Count your blessings, David. This might be your year. This might be the championship year for you. I got to give you an A.
4th year.
I don't know how I don't give this an A. This is an insane team. Absolutely stacked. Let me buy in next year.
Seriously. Invite us, please.
I'm going to go like $1,000 on the buy-in.
No one wrote me my money, bro.
And I'm assuming your waiver wire is crazy too, if this is what you have on your team. So, man, you got to win the championship, David. It's up to you. Just don't mess it up.
I don't even think like an 8-man league would look as good as this. This is insane.
This is insane.
Good shit.
Very good.
Good work.
All right, so we got you the report cards. We went through a lot of different things in the NFL. Tomorrow we'll be focusing more on the games coming up for this week, so that's going to be a lot of fun. We have a preview coming for the Ravens-Chiefs game. We'll all give you some thoughts on how that game's going to go. We have our first Against the Spread segment where we're going to all pick who we think wins against the spread. That should be fun. We have more report cards coming tomorrow. Let me see the names we have. We have Logan, so Sammy's cousin, Matt Jans, who's a friend of mine from Tucson, and that silly old bear that is Jordan Pisano. He was in my wedding. So
Nice.
those are
I love
3 more report cards we are coming. We have coming tomorrow, but we also have a lot of great conversations about, who's going to be the fantasy MVP this weekend, who we're going to start and sit. It's a very packed show. Make sure you're back here tomorrow. Really, the season starts tomorrow in our eyes. Make sure you're here with us. Thursday is the first game. We will all be watching. Make sure you're following us on all of our social medias, Instagram, Twitter, X, not Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. Follow, like, subscribe. Make sure you join the Pick'em League if you want to join. Terry, David, you guys are more than welcome to come. We have 7 people in it. We need more.
It's not going to be a walk in the park like fantasy, David.
No,
I'm telling you this right now.
It's not going to be like that. Free entry. You can win $100 if you get all the matchups correct. If you have the most right answers to who you think wins the matchups each week, you could win $100. You don't even have to spend $1 to get into the league. It is completely free. Link is in our bio for that Pick'em League. Any thoughts from you boys before we get out of here?
Darian?
Just, hey, it's week 1, baby. We excited. I've been itching for trades already. I'm ready for this season to begin.
Yeah, I feel like last year was the first year where I was really excited for football, and now it just escalates a lot more. I already know I'm already planning on making wings on Sunday, and the fact that I didn't even realize this, I was actually listening to I don't know what I was listening to. I think the Pat McAfee show or whatever. And I didn't realize that the Ravens and not the Ravens, the Eagles and the Packers play on Friday.
Friday.
So we have football Thursday, Friday, college football on Saturday, and football on Sunday, and Monday Night Football.
I know my wife's happy.
Oh, yeah. No, luckily, Ale's going to be gone for the weekend, so I already know what my weekend plans are going to be.
All right. I'm going to leave you guys with fish and chips on 3 because I'm going to be trying it for the first time. 1, 2, 3. Fish and chips.